All right. What's up, everybody? My people in Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, out West Staten Island. Especially for this video, my home borough, Brooklyn, Brooklyn. Shout out to people in Bedford-Stuyvesant, aka Bed-Stuy, do or die. Back in another video, and this one's gonna be another entry to the Greatest of All Time series. This one gonna be on Mr. Christopher Wallace, aka the Notorious B.I.G. Biggie Smalls, Biggie, Frank White, the King of New York, the King of Brooklyn, whatever you want to call him. Yeah, call him Big Pop if you want to. Okay, this is gonna be a video on him. I'm gonna start doing more Greatest of All Time videos on more bigger named guys. Guys you hear in the GO conversation more often. I already did one I did one on Nas a long time ago. Did one on Jay-Z recently. Starting to get to the Biggies and the Tupacs and the Lil Waynes and the whomever, Eminems, whoever you want to say. Andre 3000. Look, I already did a Greatest of All Time video on Outkast saying that they're the greatest duo of all time. So that kind of counts to me as the Andre 3000 video. So sorry, no Andre solo video. Okay, sorry, but this one's gonna be on the Notorious B.I.G, my fellow Brooklynite. Also my fellow Jamaican. Born and raised in Bed-Stuy, New York, Brooklyn, New York. Became one of the greatest, most influential rappers of all time. His impact still felt today in hip-hop. But anyway, let's get into his case. Now, of course, Biggie, Biggie's kind of controversial name brought up in the GO conversation of hip-hop. People's like, oh, he only has 2 projects. 2 albums released in his lifetime. And, well, really one released in his lifetime because he died before Life After Death came out. But, a lot of people say that, like younger people, of course, say that, oh, this dude only got 2 albums. How can he be the GOAT? And, that's a fair argument. That's a fair rebuttal to use against Big. But, Big's influence on hip-hop in terms of flows and lyricism and bars. Biggie's one of the best lyricists of all time in hip-hop. Okay? Number one. He's number one. You also got Nas and Jay and even Kendrick Lamar and 3 Stacks. But, man, let's get into this conversation on Biggie, being the GOAT. Okay, now, of course, like I said, he released 2 albums, Rated to Die, Life After Death, both influential rap albums, both all-time great rap albums. Rated to Die is one of the greatest debut rap albums of all time. It was part of the East Coast Renaissance that was going on in the 90s. It was kicked off by the Wu-Tang Clan in 93 with their legendary debut project, Enter the Wu-Tang, and the 36 Chambers, and Nas Illmatic followed up, as did Biggie's Rated to Die, Mobb Deep's The Infamous, and Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt. Well, let's get into Biggie, okay? Obviously, Biggie, was born and raised Christopher Wallace in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. His mother was a school teacher. She was a Jamaican immigrant. Now, obviously, here's Biggie as a teenager, I believe, rapping, freestyling. Of course, most hip-hop heads and Biggie fans have seen this video of him, rapping outside this grocery store here in Brooklyn, showing off his skills, his freestyle skills. And, of course, we all know Big was a hustler. He was singing that shit here in New York and apparently down in North Carolina, which, a lot of New York dealers do. A lot of New York drug dealers do. They go, out Midwest or down to the dirty South to sell dope. Okay? Biggie did it. Jay-Z did it. Cameron and them. I remember Cameron shouted out Ohio. He sounded like, Columbus, Ohio or wherever. Shouted them out because I assume that's where they used to hustle at. Also, in the movie Belly, we saw Tommy and Sincere, played by DMX and Nas respectively. They were hustling out there in Arkansas. Of course, Biggie ended up doing 9 months in jail in North Carolina on some shit, and he decided he wanted to change his life around. Stop being a street hustler in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Put his skills and all his time and energy into rapping. Okay, like I said, this is the old Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Like I said, the Brooklyn you hear Biggie Smalls and Jay-Z rap about, it's not like that no more. There's no longer Biggie Smalls Brooklyn. He's been invaded and infested by white hippies. These white trash hippies, these liberals, and all their peace and love shit, and their faggots and all these faggots and motherfuckers. Like, I don't got time to get into all that. Don't get me started on that. Don't get me started on that. Just can't take it anymore. But yeah, but this ain't Biggie's Bed-Stuy no more. But Bed-Stuy used to go was wilding back in the day, as most people know. Biggie grew up in that streets and he put all that skills into rapping. He eventually got discovered by Sean Combs, aka Puff Daddy, Puffy, P. Diddy, whatever you want to call him, and released his classic album Ready to Die with, the track, Bad Boy kind of had a a unique sound at that time. A unique sound. They kind of had that R&B. They were mixing that R&B style with hardcore hip hop lyrics. Biggie talking about selling dope and all that shit. Lil Kim rapping about slutty stuff, and then whole Junior Mafia clique and everybody. Of course, Big had the songs. Big Papa and who shot ya? Separate the weak from the obsolete. Hard to creep them Brooklyn streets. Big Papa and Juicy, which was a G-Funk style song. Like I said, the West Coast and the G-Funk sound dominated in the 90s, the early to mid 90s, and then Pac passed away. That was kind of the end of the West Coast as we knew and loved them, at least for that era. But back to this, Juicy, Big Papa, One More Chance, the Junior Mafia remix. They're all on this legendary album. It was released '94. It's part of the East Coast Renaissance, and it is a great album. Okay, doesn't matter where you are. You can be from the West Coast, the Dirty South, the Midwest, or the East Coast. This is a great. If you love hip hop, you hard body love hip hop, listen to this project, man. One of the best debut projects of all time. Period. Okay, now obviously this is Mr. Tupac Shakur, who, not gonna lie, I might have to. That greatest of all time video on Tupac is probably gonna. Don't wait for it. Okay, I can't promise it's gonna come anytime soon because that's a Tupac story is a lot. Tupac story is a lot, but anyway, that is, of course, Biggie and Tupac, as we all know, were friends at first. They both respect each other, their rap skills, their talent, their hustles, their journey, whatnot. And of course, there's a video on YouTube that people can look up. It was of Big and Pac freestyling. Big and Pac freestyling was a great video, but unfortunately, this relationship soured. Pac got shot. He was shot and robbed outside of Quad Studios in New York, and he thought Big had set him up, and Biggie had set him up, and of course, he ended up getting locked up, doing time for a false rape accusation by what's that girl's name? Ayanna Jackson, some shit like that. I don't know. I forget that girl's name. Drop down in the comment section, you remember. But yeah, the comment section if you remember the girl's name. But yeah, and somebody from Death Row who was locked up at the time, and with Pac got into Pac's ear. Someone from Death Row got into Pac's ear, and they convinced Suge and that person he placed in that plant he placed in the prison with Pac, convinced him that Big had set him up, and of course Pac came out raged, mad as hell, as usual. What you would expect. If you think someone got shot and you think somebody who thought you was your brother, your friend, something to do with it, of course you're gonna be mad as hell. But I think we all know Biggie had nothing to do with that shit. Okay, there's not no New York bias, East Coast bias thing. I don't think Biggie would do that. Okay, but obviously someone from Death Row got into Pac's ear and got into his head. But that sour, and Biggie continued to do his thing. I see him here with Puff Daddy. Him and Puffy, of course, were close. And then, I've heard people talk about, Biggie didn't really like Puff and whatever. He thought Puff was fake and all this shit that came out in the aftermath of Big's death. Of course, you see the Big Mac. Craig, rest in peace, Craig Mack. Craig Mack. Obviously, here's Biggie with Jay-Z. Okay, of course, this is Jay-Z years later, but Jay-Z and Big, of course, had a close relationship. Both from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Jay-Z, of course, grew up in Marcy, the Marcy Projects. Big grew up in a brownstone. But they were, and I don't know how many people know this. I think most people, like hardcore Biggie fans or hardcore hip hop fans, know this. But Biggie and Jay-Z were supposed to be in a group called the Commission. Okay, and of course, at the time, Jay-Z was going by the moniker Iceberg Slim. That was one of his alter egos. And of course, Biggie shouted him out at the beginning of What's Beef, the What's Beef song. And the song that was on Jay-Z's debut album, Brooklyn's Finest, was supposed to be a single for the album The Commission that they were supposed to work on, but of course, Big passed away, so we never got to see it happen. Of course, in the aftermath of Big's death, Jay-Z, worn T-shirts and honored his legacy, honored him, used a couple of his lyrics, of course. We all know Jay used Big's lyrics, but yeah, and of course, here's the lovely Miss Faith Evans, who, as we saw in the Big movie, they had a tumultuous, rocky relationship. Big was beating her, or Brenda beat her, allegedly. And of course, Lil Kim. Here's Big, of course, Lil Kim and their whole shit. That whole love triangle, Big and Faith and Kim, that was just a mess. But, yeah, obviously, here's Lil Kim before she fucked up her face. She ruined her face. And here's Junior Mafia, Lil Cease and all of them. And let me say this about Big. I don't know if y'all can see, but that jacket has 666 on it. I don't think people are aware how dark Biggie Smalls was, his lyrics were. you think of Big, you think of like Juicy, Big Papa. You know, I love it when you call me Big Papa. You know, Mo Money, Mo Problems, Hidden. I think of it like the R&B, you know, kind of pop hits. You know, or the ten crack commandments. They don't think about shit like that. Like, go listen to Biggie Small's song "Dead Wrong" featuring Eminem, which of course was a posthumous song. Those are the dark shit he said. Hail Mary, full of grace, smack a bitch in the face, take a Gucci bag and a North Face. Move over, Lucifer. I'm more ruthless. Biggie had dark rape lyrics, you know. What's beef? The song "What's Beef"? Don't you know my nigga gotta fucking kidnap kids, fuck him in the ass, throw him over the bridge. Like, it's crazy, man, how dark this man's lyrics were. But that was him. Of course, here's him with Nas. Of course, they had a friendly rivalry. You know, the Battle of the King of New York. Both of them released legendary classic debut albums same year. Nas, of course, came first in Illmatic, and then Big came Ready to Die. And of course, Raekwon the Chef and Ghostface Killer got, you know, dissed Big on Raekwon's legendary album. Only Built for Cuban Links, talking about how Big bit off of Nas and shit with the whole baby cover thing. Look, that's all, you know, that's debatable. That's all debatable. But, you know, we're going to get into life after death and everything else in part 2. See you all.